John O'Neill. And I seen a big scar on his knee. I said, who did that? He said, that Watson. He said, first scrum, he stuck his studs right down my shin. You should wear shin pads.
It was a brutal game back then. I mean, tidied a lot of those things up. It's brutal in many other ways now, but yeah, it was certainly.
Oh, it was.
Welcome to the Dockhouse Rugby Show. Joining us once again is friend of the show. It's Keith Pollard, the former Hull K.R. and Keith Lee rugby league professional, now a professional author and writer, with titles such as The Red and White Phoenix, The Adventures of a Hessel Road Lad, and Save the Last Dance, to name but a few. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you very much, Kes. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome.
And it's an Hessel Road Lad. You don't pronounce the H, you know.
Hessel. Right, okay. Hessel Road Lad. So Keith, as Dave said to you before, what we like to do is just take it from, you know, your first earliest memory of rugby league. How did it all start for you? How did this great journey begin?
The first game I went to was I was born on Hessel Road, which made me black and white. My whole family was black and white. Hull supporters. I was an Hull supporter. And then I went to see the Hull versus Rovers at Bulford Park, 1954. So I'd have been 8. That was my first game of rugby league. Yeah. And Hull City had lent the ground to Rovers because they were skint, and it was away against some money. And they knew they'd have a big gate, etc. You know. So yeah, so that was my first game.
Who won?
Memory of rugby league. And I used to go to Boulevard watching HULL F.C. All my heroes were playing the Drake Twins, Tommy Harris and Mick Scott, when they in Johnny Whiteley in the late 50s and 60s. And then I was playing I started playing rugby at school at Boulevard School, which was in you couldn't see Boulevard from there, but it was just up the street from the ground. And I played 11 years of age in the C team. I wasn't that good. I was a little fat ginger-haired kid. That when we used to play down the street, I was always the last one to get picked. That's how good I was. I mean, but I must have done some good. Anyway, going on. So, and then I started playing the Timber Constable Youth Club, and we won the Yorkshire Cup, 1962, I think it was. Yeah. 61. We won the Yorkshire Cup. We beat Thornhill Boys Club from Dewsbury. Bernard Watson, remember Bernard Watson played for Leeds? He was captain of Thornhill that day. And they had 1 or 2 other players that made the grade. Anyway, we won the Yorkshire Cup. And luckily enough, Hull K.R. came to me and asked me if I'd sign for Rovers. My dad never spoke to me for 3 years after I signed for Rovers.
And you was only a young lad. You was 16, wasn't you?
16, yeah. Yeah, you could sign when you were 16. I actually went, me and a lad called Pete Walker, who finished up at Salford, the hooker. We went and played in an open trial. Anybody, you know, they just said, come down and have a game. So me and him went on our bikes, and I'd never really been to East Hull before from where I live. It was like 3 buses, you mean? It was a day out to go to East Hull.
Right.
We went on our bikes and we played in this game. And we both got picked out after. And Colin Hutton came to us and said, "Are you interested in coming to play for Rovers?" So, yeah, well, the black and whites, but yeah, all right, what's the script sort of thing? You know, we didn't know. I mean, there's no managers or agents or out in India. So he's taking our notice. He said, "Right, what's your date of birth?" So I told him. He said, "Well, you're only 15." So I said, "Yeah." He said, "We shouldn't even be talking to you. Because you got to be 16. They couldn't even approach you. So they more or less get on your bike and come back when you're 16. Anyway, when I was 16, they come back. And all was offering at the time 25 quid for 2 years. 25 quid signing on fee.
Right.
And Rovers offered me 250 quid. Well, yeah. I mean, Hull hadn't actually been to see me, but I knew that's what some of the lads was already getting. And snap their hands off, you know, 250 quid. You could buy a house down the road for that. Yeah. And you can now, but, you know, but
Yeah, but then you could.
So I signed for Rovers. Said the old man was gutted. All my family's disowned me. My two uncles was trawler skippers, and I only saw them. They was away for 3 weeks at a time and home for 3 days. I never saw them for months and months and months. And when I did, oh, geez, the commission stick, you know, because I'd gone to be a red.
Was it that bad? Did you actually get?
Yeah. My Uncle Tom didn't eat bacon because it was red and white.
Wow. Because obviously the Hull and Hull K.R rivalry, it's a massive derby, isn't it? Yeah.
They say Wigan and St Helens is the biggest derby, but believe me, it's not. You know, it's unbelievable how they don't just dislike each one another; they hate one another. Right. I mean,
so talk us through that then, Keith. Being a young kid,
I don't sit on the fence, but our lassie's red and white. The father came off as a road, but he was a Rovers supporter. How he got into it, I don't ever know, but he was a Rovers supporter. Our lassie's red and white by me. That's how I met her. But and then that was the beginning of a decent career, I suppose. I played.
So go on then. What did your dad say to you when you come home and you said, like, did he go with you, or was it just one thing?
What, when they signed me on? The vice chairman come to the house.
Right.
He came to the house, knocked at the door, and he said, "You know, can I speak to your son?" And dad. We lived in a 2-up, 2-down terraced house, a working class area. All the fishing industry was based on where we lived.
Right.
I mean, they pulled our houses down to build slums. You know, outside toilet, no hot water. You know, tin bath on the nook on the wall and all that. I remember you can read it all in there, by the way. But,
right, okay. I remember my granddad saying, he said, "I don't get you a lot." He said, "We used to go to the toilet outside and eat inside. Now you all eat outside and go to the toilet inside. You're all crackers."
Yeah. Anyway, this bloke, Ron Chester, he was vice chairman. He came to see us. Blah blah blah. We've been watching you. Will you sign for Rovers? So I said, "How much do you want?" I just said 250 quid. And he said, "All right." And that was it. I could have got. I found out later.
You could have got more.
I could have got more, but 250 quid was a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then I played in the A team when I was 16. I made my debut at Bramley, which was an hard place to go to play rugby. The old Barley Moor before they built the McLaren Field. It's behind it. You won't remember it. You're not old enough. There used to be a pub called the Barley Moor. The ground was right behind the pitch. The pitch was right behind the ground, should I say. The dressing rooms used to be a cattle shed, I think. As you went up these rickety stairs, there was more players injured going up and down these stairs than there was on the field. And it was an hard place to go, a really hard place to go, Bramley in them days. And then I made my debut, I was 17, I think, I think it was Castleford at home. I scored a try on my debut. And I was in and out the first team. As I say, we had a good team. We finished, when it was all one league, when there was 30-odd teams in the league. And we finished, I think we finished 15th, or 16th, which was good. We had a team of internationals. I was the only player in the pack that wasn't an international.
Right.
Yeah. Terry Major was captain of the Great Britain under-24s.
Do you remember who won the league that year, Keith?
Pardon?
Can you remember who won the league in that year? First season.
I think it was St Helens, because we played them in the playoff. We beat Oldham. In the first playoff game, and then we had to go to St Helens, and there was Van Vollenhoven was on one wing. I remember the pack was John Tenby, Dagnall, Cliffy Watson, John Mantle had just started, Mervix, and Ray French. I think Ray French was loose manner. Anyway, we were doing all right. And Murphy was scrum half. I can't remember the backs. But this brawl, Murphy Nix, Crack Foster. We had our pack was Frank Fox, Flash, me, Bill Holiday, Frank Foster, and Harry Poe. So it wasn't a bad pack, like. Anyway, this brawl started. Maybe Nix cracked Foster as he was going through it. A poleaxed the bull. Frank just shook his head and stuck the knot on him. And And then it just, and I was stood next to Cliffy Watson. I thought, oh, I was giving it this. You mean all in there? And Cliffy just turned to me and he looked at it and he just said, "Don't worry, Keith, leave him to it." Because he had a Brummie accent. I always thought he was a Cockney, but he was brought up in Birmingham. When he went to Birmingham when he was about 4, I think. Right. I always tell everybody I was just going to give him one, and then he,
he probably didn't want to crack off a young 18-year-old who was full of it.
Yeah. Anyway, we got beat. So, but I had 2 good years in the first team, and then I fell out with one of the directors. Told him he can't talk to the directors like I did, and they sold me to Keithley, and I was there 3 years at Keithley.
So that wasn't a decision that you'd made. That was the club just said, right, we've offloaded you.
No. I'd asked for a transfer.
Right, okay.
Because I wasn't getting in the first team. Mm-hmm. After that, after I'd had a discussion with one of the directors, also nameless sort of thing, but we just didn't see eye to eye. He didn't like me and I didn't like him.
Right.
And I was a bit outspoken. You might not think I could be that way, but I was a little bit. And I told him to go away on jerky movements,
Yeah.
But, I asked for a transfer and they wouldn't give me one. At the end of 66, I went to York for 4 games on loan, right? Last 6 matches. Mike Blackmore, the winger, broke his jaw, and they swapped him for a bloke called. Oh, I went there, and a bloke called Stan Flannery came to Rovers for the last 6 games. And Tommy Harris, one of my other heroes that I used to watch at Hull, Tommy Harris, the Great Britain hooker, he was coaching York, and he said, "If we can get you, will you come?" And I said, "Yeah, without a doubt." So one of the games, the last game we played was Rovers at Rovers, and I asked Ron Chester if they'd let me go, and they said, "Oh no, we've got big plans for you," and all like that. Anyway, the next year, now I won't get in, and because the directors picked the team, didn't they, in them days?
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't get on with the directors, you'd no chance.
Right.
And anyway, I kept asking for a transfer, and at the end of the day, they put me on the list. And Keithley come in for us. Eric Palmer, who used to play with us at Rovers, had gone to Keithley, and I went there. And the first game we played Bradford at Keithley. Big Jim Mills was propping.
Big Jim.
And I think it was Goddard was the other prop. Tony Fisher was the hooker, Madman Tony. He was hooking. And I've said this up, I had a decent game. And at half time, Norman Mitchell, who I talked about passing away, he said, "Look, we want you. Will you come?" I said, "Yeah." So that was it. I went home. I said to the old man, "I'll last, do you fancy going to?" Oh, I'm like, we went home. And during the summer, I was working what we call across the river at Humber Graving Dock, and you could get a council house in Immingham in them days in 6 weeks. And while I was engaged, saving up to get married, I said, "So I'll ask you if I rang Keithley up and I said, I've chucked it, I can't play anymore." I said, "Why?" Blah, 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 blah. I can get a council house. I said, "Well, we've got a house in Keithley if you want it. Come and live here." So I went home and said to her, "I'll ask you if fancy going to live in Keithley." "Yeah, all right then." So we got married. Says to the old man, "I'm getting married in a month." He said, "Why? Is she up the stick?" I said, "No." I said, "But oh, bloody hell, we just moved in this council house, and you said you won't go anywhere." What I mean? We've moved up to what they call Gypsyville, paying more rent than I've ever paid, and I shot through.
So they moved closer to being near to for you playing rugby, and then you've shifted.
Yeah. So I went to live in Keithley, and I had 3 years there. And I got pretty regular first team, apart from being suspended half the time. But,
I know that feeling, Keith.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a Keith thing. Maybe it's what it is.
I think it was 13 times I got sent off. I think it was 13. Well, something like that. Anyway, but I got 10 matches one season. Tony Amshaw was one bloke at Halifax I got sent off for. Robin Dewhurst, who played full-back for Bramley, I clattered him and got sent off. I was playing for Keithley against Rovers, and I tackled Jeff Wrigglesworth and got sent off. And I didn't know I'd been sent off because Archie Beatson, honestly,
how do you know you're not been sent off?
Archie Beatson in the first game he ever played for Rovers. That was in the A team. It was a week before I got married. I said to Keithley, "I'm not playing next week." I said, "Because I'm getting married the week after, and I don't want to get hurt." So they said, we're playing the A team then, they're at Rovers. I said, all right, then I'll play that game. Yeah. So I played 90 beats and played. Well, I didn't play 90 beats so much. Anyway, come through and I hit him with bang. And it went down. It went down and he got up. And he was playing second row and he went in the scrum and he let one through from the second row and clattered me. Well, no, he didn't. He bounced off me and hit Tony Pell, our Oakwood. Tony was in hospital for 2 days.
Oh, dear.
And he got sent off. So the next time I played against him was up at Keithley. And I gave him another one, but this time he didn't go down, but I did. That was the last thing I remember. No, that tells the story after that, because I can't remember him getting sent off.
Right.
And Artie, I met Artie a few times, and he said to me, he always reckoned I was the first bloke to break his nose, right? When I give him that one at Craven Park, and I'll stand that one. If that's my thing I can put on my gravestone, I broke Arthur Beatson's nose. That'll do me.
Yeah.
It's not a bad story saying you were sent off and you didn't know. That's a good one as well. I like that.
Honestly, I woke up
found out a few weeks later. You know, you were sent off the other week. Room. Was I?
Then I went to Australia. You know, they said these 3 lads we had playing: Tommy Sale, John Green, and Adam Pascoe. I went to play in Tamworth. That's where I was going to go. And when I got there, they hadn't had any rain for 3 months, and it was a farming area. And blah, blah. I couldn't get a job. And a lad, a mate of Tommy Sales, who come from Maitland, and was talking to Tom and blah blah. And I got a message that I want to go and play for Maitland in Newcastle, but I didn't even know where Maitland was. So I said, so I went there for a weekend and come back, and I signed for them. And I played in the 3rd grade. The first game I played, because you started off in the lower grades. I played in the 3rd grade. I just didn't have a game because they played a totally different way to the way I played for men. So the next week, I played in the 3rd grade again. And I went to training on the Monday, and I said to the coach, I'm not playing like this, the way you play. I said, you're useless. You weren't allowed to pass the ball. It just, all the props was just head down, arse up, you know, and we was used to playing with the ball. Mm-hmm. Let the ball do the work, run for a gap and all this. That's how we used to play. So at training, I said to the couple of young kids second row, they just come with me and make you a star, you know what I mean? And I was popping these through gaps and thought I was Paul Daniels. Props didn't pass balls, you know, it was unbelievable. And then I was reserved, because there, you had to be reserved for reserve grade, you had to play a game in 3rd grade. And to be reserved for 1st grade, you had to have played a game, full game, either in 3rd grade or reserve grade, to be reserved for 1st grade. So I was reserved for reserve grade, they played. Then I was reserved for 1st grade. The kid, Max McMahon, got injured after 10 minutes, and I went on. So I had to play another game, right? So it was like 2 games in one day. And you only got paid 3/4 of a game. If you only played 3/4 of a game, you only got paid 3/4 of a game.
Really?
Oh, yeah. This was before the contract system came in.
Right.
Anyway, played 11 games straight. We won the grand final that year. We beat Lakes United in the grand final. So, and then that summer, the free transfer system came in. So everybody's free agent. So Maitland come to me and said, well, we want to sign you on a contract. So I thought, as I said, there was no agent, so nobody to advise you, whatever you thought was a good thing and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. What age were you at this point, Keith?
Pardon?
What age were you at this point?
25.
25, right, okay.
I went to Australia in 71.
Right.
Yeah, 25.
Dave will remember 71. He's older than me. I won't remember.
So they said, what do you want? And I didn't really know. I just said $1,000 and $100 a game. Right. So I got $1,000 starting home fee and $100 a game in any grade. Because I knew that the differences in grades. I said, no matter what grade I played, I want $100 a game. They didn't like it, but they agreed to it. Right. So the second year, or the first year of my contract, if you like, I got injured. I can't remember what I did, but I got injured, and then they played like 20 games a season, and I think it was about 4 or 5 games I got injured. And Glenn Wilkes, whose place I took in the first team the first year, he got in, and I never got back in.
Right.
And there was either 3 or 4 of us had started off in the first team at the beginning of the season, 3 of them had played rep football for Newcastle, with like playing for Yorkshire, playing for Newcastle. It's hard to explain. So we could do a full story on the Newcastle, on the Australian setup country rugby league and that. But anyway, 3 of them had played for Newcastle, and they was in the A team as well. And we got beat playing in the grand final. And the first team got in the grand final and got beat. That's not. We was played Macquarie in the reserve grade grand final, and we got beat. And the 3rd grade was in the grand final, and I think they won. But anyway, so the 3rd year, which was the 2nd year in the contract, the 3rd year we started off, we did all right. I was in, and then I got dropped. He was only allowed 1 bad game, and he was out. There's no, he didn't, just because who you was didn't keep you in, you know. And I played, and I got dropped. And then we played Cessnock at Cessnock, and I had a real good game in the A team. And the next week I was back in, right? And I played every game, and we won that grand final. We played Western Suburbs, who was the big team. Western Suburbs Newcastle owned the Newcastle Knights. It was the biggest working man's club in the world, Newcastle, West Newcastle. The Rosellas, they called them.
Yeah.
Father John Coates, you might have heard of him. He was a test centre. He played in the centre. Dennis Ward was the Australian scrum half at the time. He was the captain coach.
Right.
They're a really good team, and we were beaten in the grand final, to say. And then the following year, that was the last year in the contract. I broke my arm. 74, I broke my arm.
Right.
And I was down to play against the Poms. I was playing real well and all. And the Pommies came on tour that year, and they never used to pick. The Newcastle team never picked a Pommy. Nobody would pick Pommies to play in a rep team. Because he was doing somebody, he could stop somebody going further, playing for New South Wales and playing for Australia. So they just didn't do it. No matter how well you played, if you was an import like that, you never got in.
You weren't getting in Origin. You weren't playing Origin rugby, were you? Because then, I suppose and what they're still trying to have, that's like the feeder for the national side, isn't it? So
anyway, one of the kids was a selector, said to me, they're going to pick you to play against the Poms, the touring team. Magic. I broke my wrist the week before.
Oh.
And I went to the game, and they invited me to the reception after, because I would have been playing, and all the Pommies was there. I say, John Butler, who played for St Helens, John was there, because John played at Keith with me. He was a St Helens lad.
Johnny Butler? The scrum half, John Butler?
John Butler went to Salford, yeah.
Yeah, I know John. Yeah. I knew John very well.
Yeah, he was a loose forward originally when he came to Keighley.
Right.
He was a St Helens lad.
Yeah. I think he was good pals with my dad. My dad was quite involved in...
Anyway, the next year I went coaching.
Right.
So I go play a coach's job up in the bush. They asked me if I was interested in coaching the Maitland team, and I said, yeah, if you put it in writing, no, you know. Oh well, no. I said, well, no, forget it. Anyway, and they came to see me. There was bottom of the league. There was 2 teams that merged: Cessnock Central and Central Kempsey and Kempsey CYM Catholic Young Men's Club. They merged. It was like Hull and Rovers merging. They hated one another. And they had 1 season, and there was bottom of the league. And then I took them on with the same players. We imported one kid from Smithtown came to play for us, and we finished man of Premiers, top of the league, and got beat in the grand final.
Wow!
And then the second year, and I played for the Red.
Was you player coach?
Yeah, player coach. Yeah. And then I played for the North Coast rep team that year. They'd never won a game in 15 years of rep football, and we played Newcastle at Newcastle. And Newcastle had beaten Cronulla on the Wednesday night in the Amco called the Amco Cup. It was a knockout thing. Yeah. And we beat them 35-5. The kid called one of the stars, I'm not saying because I played, but one of the stars of the team was a kid called Ian Martin, who played for Manly. And he'd gone in the bush because Manly wouldn't give him the money he wanted because he was a local, right? A bit of politics in it, like. So he said, I would stuff it then. So I went in the bush and coached a team called Sawtell, who was in the same group as Kempsey. He was a great player. He had 1 year in the bush, then Manly took him back.
Right.
He went back to Manly, yeah. Paid him the money.
Played well then. Out of all those games then, Keith, which do you think was your toughest match? Or the most brutal out of all those games that you played? Was it tougher in the early days when you first started out, or was it tougher when you went over to Australia?
It was more vicious early days. Local derbies was always, whatever game you played in, local derbies was always hard. I remember one local derby, Frank Foster's sent one through and hit Alan McGlow on the hooker and flattened it. The two packs broke up and we were all scrapping, and I thought one of them said to Frank Foster, "I'll have you after the game," and even those players turned around and looked at him. Don't poke the bear, jeez, you know what I mean? So that was always hard. Yeah. We used to play a team in Newcastle called Curry, and that was a local derby. The coalfields, like Featherstone, Castleford, Wakefield, are like our coalfields, aren't they? Well, in Newcastle, it's a big coal mining area, and the coaling area, the mining area was Maitland, Cessnock, and Curry. So Curry was always an hard game. It was an English type pitch. You know, the stand was right on the side. They were throwing bottles at you, and you know, used to spit at you. If they got anywhere near the touchline, they used to spit on you and all. You know. I remember, and they had a prop, Mad Dog Mitchell, they call him, John Mitchell. He used to bite you. He used to bite you, and he was always having. And I remember he'd done his rib cartilage, and we'd gone in this scrum, and he nutted us. As I went into the scrum, he stuck the nut on us. So and then he was biting me ear. So I brought the scrum on and I just stuck the nut on him, and she was an ad, you know. And then it went off, and our trainer come on and he said, Mitchell's done his rib cartilage. Give him some if he gets back on. So anyway, he come back on, and the ball had gone out the scrum, and I grabbed him and I give him one right in the ribs. So I thought I'd killed him. You know, it went blue and it went off, and I never played against him again. Funny enough, but yeah, that was an hard game. Another one we played North Newcastle. There was always an hard team. There was like a working man's area, and they had a few thought there was hard cases. And I'd gone to Maitland, and the first game they played while I was there was North, and there's two or three of them give Maitland's pack a right hard in, and I thought, I don't know, they're getting away with this. Anyway, it was at the Leeds Club on the night, and one of the directors of Leeds Club said to me, his president, Dave Nolan, said to me, "What do you think, Tom? What do you reckon?" I said, "Well, I don't know. And so-and-so got away with it. You know, this so-called hard case." So I said, "Well, you know," and I'd had a few beverages as well. So I said, "He won't do it next time I ever play against him." Anyway, we played then the last game of the competition, the rounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the first scrum, I went in and I stuck the nut on him, and he went on the floor. I trampled all over his hands, you know, and I'd said he won't finish the game. Anyway, I'll give him the right stick. They had another good second row, kid called Keith Madison, who was an hard case. He was, you know, and he tried to give us a couple, but that was an hard game. The winger, I tackled their winger and broke his jaw. He went off.
But they called you night nurse, didn't they, Keith?
And they kicked the ball off, and they kicked it to me. I knew it was for me, and as I took the ball, I saw this kid coming at me, and as I took the ball, I just let on and went like that, and he ran right on my elbow, and I hit him on the breastbone and broke his breastbone.
Oh!
He dropped to the floor and he went blue. Honestly, I thought I'd killed him. Anyway, there was hell on after that, you know. That was an hard game. That was one of the most brutal games.
It became a battle, did it?
Oh yeah. And then when we played them at their place the next year, they collapsed the scrum, and I think 6 of them kicked me. I think the linesman kicked me once just for fun.
Even the officials were fighting with you.
Yeah. The woman at the tea room with a ladle.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But you also said that earlier on, like you played against some great people like Tom Van Vollenhoven. What was he like as a player? Keith?
Never got him. Never saw him. Never mind got him. It's like Alex Murphy. I chased him once. Thought I had him, and as I went like that, he dropped it a gear. Gone. You mean? Oh, different class, man. Bobby Fullerton. I played against Bobby Fullerton, and I went into clatter him, and he just disappeared. You know what I mean? And he'd gone. You know, none of the days you think, what the hell am I doing here? You know?
Yeah. So when Van
Vollenhoven was good, he was a class.
When you was playing out in Australia, then, because obviously the game wasn't fully professional, and it was still semi-pro. Obviously, you'd work your contract and you was getting your game pay. But what did you have a day job out there then? Or?
Yeah, I was classed as a boilermaker.
Boilermaker.
Yeah, well, they call them boilermakers, like platers and welders and all that. Steelwork sort of stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I used to do when I was out there.
All right, fantastic.
And that's why I won't go to Cronulla. When Cronulla offered me to go, it was $2,000 signing on fee and $200 a game. That's all you could get. The league had stipulated that was the amount you could get. But I was getting $1,000 and $100 a game playing for Maitland, and I was a big fish in a little pond, rather than a little fish in a big pond. Plus, I'd had to live in Cronulla, and to do my job, I would have had to have travelled an hour to get to South Sydney area, the industrial areas. It would have been an hour's travel in the morning, hour's travel back.
Right.
And, Maitland never had traffic lights. You know what I mean? I remember a mate of mine, Brian Burke, he was West Tigers or Western Suburbs at the time. Asked him to go. He was Country Player of the Year. He was scrum half for the country first. Brilliant footballer, really was. And they went to West Tigers, and they went to Sydney in his car, drove to West, got there, went for the interview and said, "I'm not coming." And they said, "Why?" He said, "I'm not living here." He said, "The amount of traffic lights I've been through just to get to here, no chance." And drove around and went, "Oh,
hey.
Wouldn't go." Yeah.
It's too many traffic lights.
Won't live in Sydney, no.
All right.
It used to be a terrible place to get round. Oh,
right.
It was murder. It's a lot different now with tunnels and all this. But years ago, going up that Pacific Highway, it was through Wyong and it's murder getting there.
Yeah. So how long was you out in Australia for then, Keith?
Sorry?
How long was you out in Australia for?
There. 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah, I was 4 years in Maitland and 2 years in Kempsey.
Right.
And then we decided to come home. My mother I was the only one, and my mother had been ill. My dad said, "If you don't come home, it'll kill her." You know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. So we came home.
Right.
First thing the old man said to me, "What the hell did you come back here for?"
Because you told me to.
You told me to, yeah. And I still been back. And it was funny. I went back after 10 years, the first time, after 10 years, and I was offered a coaching job.
Right.
Yeah. Kid who coached us at Maitland, Terry Panowitz. I'd gone to see him, and he said, he said, "Well, there's a bit of a thing to this, because when I was coming home, I'd gone back to Maitland to see all the people I knew, like, and Penno said to me, Cessnock had been trying to get in touch with you, because we didn't have phones. No mobiles in them days. Didn't even have a phone at home, didn't we? So I said, what for? He said, "Are you interested in the coaching job?" I said, "Well, right." He said, "Cessnock." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going home." He said, "All my gear's gone. Packing cases and everything. I've got 3 suitcases." I said, "No." He said, "Well, they want you." Anyway, I didn't go. And that year, they won the comp. Kid called Henry Tartner got the job. He used to play for St. George. I think he was a Tongan. He got the coaching job. And I was in front of him. I was first choice. And he got the job. And they won the comp. And funny enough, he won the lottery that year. Won $200,000 on the lottery as well. I might have bought the same ticket.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's a proper sliding doors moment, that one, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Would you rather have the job or the 200 grand, Keith?
Sorry?
Would you rather have the job or the £200,000?
No, I'd rather have had the job. Yeah, that's always been my biggest regret, is not being able to get a coaching job here in England. I once had a chance with Mansfield Marksmen, and they was playing out of Halifax. And I wrote after they was looking for a coach, and I wrote after it, and the bloke come back to me and he said, if you'd have lived in Halifax or the West Riding, would have given you the job.
Right.
But because you lived in Hull, like you was like 60 miles, wasn't you, before you get anywhere.
Yeah.
And I once had a chance at Rovers. Well, I had 2 chances at Rovers. Colin up and asked me once, and then they give it to a kid called Dickie Wallace, who was a full-back from York. He got like a player coaching job in the 18. And then a kid called Steve Linnane, who was from Curry, funny enough, he was coaching Rovers. And we got talking one night. He said, we got talking about that. He didn't know him, didn't know me. I said, oh, I used to play in Aussie. So he said, where did you play? I said, I was in Newcastle. Where you come from? They said, who did you play for? I said, the Pickers. The name was the Maitland Pumpkin Pickers. That was the name of the team. And he says, bloody hell, are you Keith Pollard? So I said, yeah. Said, you fancy coaching job? So I said, what? Did you fancy coaching the reserves? So I said, you'll do it for now. And before it occurred, before it come about, he went back to Australia. He had trouble at home, so he had to go home. And I never got the job. I mean, I coached with Lee Radford at East Hull. I coached Will Dockers for a while. But I've never got the chance of coaching professionally. You know? Yeah. Peter Sharp, who I played with at Maitland, who finished up coaching HULL F.C, I was talking to him, he said, why haven't you ever got a coaching job? Because I went once down to Newcastle and he coached Maitland Fairgrade, and he asked me to go down and give him a few training runs, put them through the paces. And I thought, I've taught you all you know what I mean? And I was coaching HULL F.C. And he said, I can't understand why you've never got a coaching job. I said, because it's all you bleeding Australians coming over and pinching them all. You blokes that can't get gigs in the Australia, you're coming over here.
Yeah, but they said that about you when you went over there and started coaching, though, Keith. So when you came back over here, then did you finish your playing career over here, or did you hang your boots up in Australia?
Sorry?
Did you hang your boots up over here or in Australia?
Well, no, it's a funny story that I came home and Harry Poole was coaching Rovers, and he said to me, "You fancy coming back to Rovers?" Because I got on well with Harry, and I said, "Nah, not well. So and so's chairman." But I don't get on. The director I had a Barney with was the chairman. I said, "They won't have me. I'll never get a game." He said, "Well, I'm picking the team." Well, HULL FC had already approached me, right? I said, "No." I said, "I'm going to Boulevard." I said, "I used to be HULL support when I was a kid." I said, "I got over it, but I said my family never forgive me for it." I said, "And they all told me Dad I'd finish in a black white shirt." So I went down to HULL. Biggest mistake I ever made in my life.
Really? Why? Why is that?
Why?
Just didn't want my. I shouldn't call people, and I don't want to call people, but I just didn't see eye to eye with the board for a start. The kid who was the coach. I played in the reserves. He said you'll have to play a couple of A-team games. So let's see how you go. So I was all right. I was a free agent, right? So I played 3 A-team games. I think I scored 3 tries in 3 A-team games. I was a pro. And the kid who was coaching the A-team was just a nodding donkey for the kid who was the coach. And I just didn't work. The chemistry just wasn't there. And I just wasn't enjoying it. So I chucked it and never went down again. And then about 2 weeks later, I'm in town and I picked up a paper.
Extra, read all about it.
And I'm making my debut for the first team with Keith Lee. And I haven't been, right? Honestly,
so you found out by picking up the paper that you was in the team?
Yeah. So,
how long before kick-off was that?
That was on the Friday night. The game was on the Sunday. Right. The game was at Keith Lee, right?
Right.
So I was living at Withensea at the time, which is right on the coast from home. So I went to my mother and father-in-law's house, and father-in-law said to me, "Chairman of HULL's been trying to get rid of you," because they had a telephone. We didn't have one in where we was with. He said, "You're in the first team." I said, "No, I've just read it in the paper." He said, "You've got to go and sign the form so that you can't play on Sunday." So I went to see this bloke and I said, "What about the money you promised me?" "Oh, well, look, don't worry, we'll give you, that'll all be sorted, but you're playing in the first team on Sunday." I said, "Hey, all right. I wasn't happy, you know." Anyway, it was off. It was off with bad weather. It was February, I think it was. It was off, so I never went again. And I went to watch the A team play one Friday night. And Brian Lockwood was coaching Wakefield at the time. And Lockie come up the dressing room. Well, I know Lockie years like. He said, "What's my way? Why you injured? You down here, aren't you?" I said, "No, I've chucked it." "When?" I said, "Oh, weeks ago." He said, "I want to join it." "And why don't you come to Wakefield and play in the A team to bring the kids on? Will you come?" So I said, "Yeah." So I went. He took me to see the secretary, Alan Pearman. He went into the office in Hull and said, "Want his clearance? He hadn't signed on for you. You know, he's coming to play for Wakefield." Well, they were not very happy. But I'd had no money off them out, you know.
Right.
I went to Wakefield, played in the A team, loving it. The Rain twins had just started. Keith and Kevin Rain, Mike Lampowski had just signed on, playing in the A team. Paul McDermott was fullback. Barry McDermott's younger brother. They finished up at York. John Crossley. And Keith, did he go to Widnes? Anyway, a lot of good young kids. And it was just like being a player coach, you know what I mean? And then Lockie went back to Australia, and I was getting a good deal. It was 11 quid, what they call squad money, right, which is losing money in the first team at the time. This was 77, and 77, 78 season. Anyway, one of the senior professionals saw me wage packet one night and went and complained about it. And they asked me to come and take a cut, and I said, "Nah." It was only the week before the chairman had patted me on the back and told me what a good job I was doing. I said, "Nah, stuff it up your ass." Sorry, stuff it. I'm away.
Oh, you can say that. That's fine. Don't worry.
I said,
say what you want, Keith.
No, I said,
we put it's not for kids. This show.
And then that was when I hung up my boot, sort of thing. Oh, a lie. Doncaster come after me, and I said, "Nah, no chance." They said, "Oh, we watched you play. We're going to build a team around you and all this." Bollocks. So I said, "No, I'm not interested." This was while Wakefield were asking me to take a cut. So I said, "Nah." He said, "Well, Doncaster's ringing up. They want you." I said, "Oh, you're getting rid of me because Donny want me." No. Blah, blah. I said that. Anyway, I listened to the chairman of Doncaster and his spiel. I said, "Where are you playing?" So he said, "We're at Keighley on Sunday. Do you fancy?" I said, "All right, then I'll play." Well, you didn't see that show, Another Bloody Sunday? Did you ever see that documentary they did?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was just like that. Oh, I've never been in such a. I went in the dressing room, and as you went in, the bloke threw a little black bag with your number on and a pair of short socks and a shirt. Right, that's what you got. Hardly anybody spoke. The coach, well, want that inspiration, you know what I mean? And I thought, what am I doing here? Tony Bannon was playing, Big Tony, on that Another Bloody Sunday game.
Yeah.
Big cockney, big black fella. Run like hell, but he was just never fit. But, you know, smashing kid. He's dead now, bless him. But anyway, I was like a ball playing forward. You know, I got blokes running off us and all like that. So I said to his second row, Norman Cooper, I think they called him. I said, "Come with me, Norman." So I went and put him through a gap. We got about 20 yards off the line. And I said to Tony, "Come with us, Tony, and I'll put you under the sticks." And I went at 3 of them. And as I turned like that with the ball, it was still stood where I'd left it. Bang, bang,
He hadn't
bang.
followed you.
You know what I mean? And then a bit later on, in the first half, I went to tackle a kid. And as he spun away, he kind of hit me with his head. I mean, Joe come round here somewhere. And I come off. I thought I'd broke it. I went to hospital, had X-ray and that. But I dislocated it because your jaw's not actually. None of the bones was broken, but it come out a joint. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're like mug handles, aren't they?
Yeah. So it'll go back itself. So I've given it a bottle of beer for a week or so. You know what I mean? I said, "That's it. I've had enough." I chucked it. Right. That was the end of my career. I played a few games for Dockers in the Ulman District, Ulman District League at the time.
And was you still in the same trade as you was in Australia?
I was working at home. So I'd gone into the piping game. I was a pipe fitter welder, and I was foreman for a company working in Hull. So it suited me playing 18 football. I played one first team game for Wakefield. That was Wigan away.
Right.
I think a few other players got Wigganitis, so I had to go to Wigan. We got beat. That was an experience as well. That Brian Hogan was it, the prop he used to play. He was giving our hooker a bit of an hard time. One of our props come off injured, and I had to go on. And the hooker said, "Get into him. He's giving us a hard time." So the first scrum, I just stuck the knot on him. But it was one of the Great Britain props. You weren't expecting it, I don't think. So he wasn't very happy.
Was that your favourite? You seem to put the nut on quite a few, Keith. Is that your favourite shot?
Yeah.
Start with that.
My dad always just, don't use your hands. Never use your hands. Just use your head.
Right.
You might have meant go to school and learn something. Did you not mean that?
Do you think then, like, obviously the game is a lot different now, would you say it was dirty then, or was it just more physical? It was
both. It was both.
Yeah.
It was dog eat dog. If you didn't get into them, they give it to you. What do you mean? Simple as that.
Yes, exactly. I always said that, Keith.
Yeah, first in, best dressed.
That's it. If I was going to do it to them, they were going to do it to me, so they were getting it first.
And there was players you played against, like Cliff Watson, Dennis Hartley. I mean, I played against Jack Wilkinson, one of the pure. And this is no disrespect. I'm not. He was an animal. You know what I mean? He once broke an hooker's arm. He's put his foot under it. He said to him, "If you go down loose arm again, I'll break your arm." A kid told me this who was playing for Halifax at the time.
Yeah.
And the hooker went down with a loose arm, and he put his foot under his arm and stamped on it to break it against the joint.
Snapped his arm.
Yeah. And as he's walking off, Jack said, "Well, I told him."
And it was a warning.
Yeah. Fair warning, yeah.
Well, people won't know what that is now, a loose arm in the scrum. Tell people what that is, Keith.
Yeah. But what it is, the hookers used to go in and you had to put the arms around the shoulders of the props, right?
Come in like that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's right. But the blindside prop, your job was to get as low as you can, and then you could. That's right. So the open side prop used to stand up. The hooker was laid like that, so his foot was nearer the opening of the scrum, right? So he could strike for it when the ball came in, and then he could slip his arm off. Your job as a blindside could just move so his arm could slip off. So it was like a dancing act, you know what I mean? Some of them used to go in and never even put it around your shoulder, and put it around their arm and
pack it. I was an hooker, so I'd pack in low. I'd come in up low like that, and as soon as it was out, your arm was in.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, this kid kept going with the low arm, and Jack said, "I've had enough of this." You know, Jim Drake, who was my hero at all. I played with him at Rovers. We played at York one day in the 18 when I was a kid, and they had an hooker called Laurie Milner, and I always said he had a foot like a chameleon's tongue. I'm sure he had an hand on the end of his foot. He didn't wear a boot. His hand used to get it. And anyway, I was propping, and Jim was playing second row this day, and he was playing up home for a start because he was a prop, and and the coach said, "Let him play prop. You can teach him while you're there." Anyway, Jim said, "I've had enough of this. Move your ass." So the next scrum we went in, I moved over and he sent one through and cracked this Laurie Milner, and they carried him off. In fact, the pack broke up, and he was still like this, and he just went. He just felt, and they were still bringing him round when we got on the bus to come home. Yeah, nobody saw it.
Smelling salts. Go on, cocker. Yeah. Go on, cocker.
Smelling salts and a bucket out of sponge out of the water.
But it was. I personally think it was so much better when the scrums were contested. And all right, yeah, there was a little bit of where you probably stretch the rules and challenge rooms. You throw a loose arm in, but as a hooker. a scrum's coming in. You've got a job to do. You've got to get that ball out. Your props have got a job to do containing the other.
There's nobody here that could teach them.
Yeah, true. But your prop, like you say, your props had a job to do. Your open side prop, your other prop, your second rowers had a job to do, and the loose forward, even he, it wasn't just to come and get your head in within 40 seconds.
No, we're just going for a rest.
Yeah. The loose forward actually steered the scrum and got the momentum going behind it and kept you straight. But
it was a different game back then with the contested scrums, and the positions were the hooking position was quite different than it is now. But it's changed quite a lot, and it's evolved. You know, some people say it was better back then. Some people say it's quicker now. I watched the 1987 Cup final again a couple of weeks ago, and the ball went in a knock on or went into touch, and it was a scrum, and they packed down straight away. There's none of this waiting for a full minute and walking to the scrum and getting the rest. They just packed down straight away. The ball was in. It's almost like a play of the ball, and we're away again playing.
Yeah.
The bigger, the fitter, the faster nowadays, but they can't play rugby. Not like we know it.
Yeah.
You very rarely see a forward passing to another forward. You never see anybody run for a gap. Mick Clark came to Keithley. He was my not instigator, but he got us about. He used to say to me, when you pass a ball, you don't pass a ball to a man. You pass a ball to a gap. Right? And it's up to them to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree with that.
And I did that in Aussie, and that's what I say. They thought I was Paul Daniels. I used to say to blokes, run outside number 6, and I'd take the ball and pop the ball, and then go through a gap. Yeah. Well, I said, why do they put doors in walls? So you can run through the gap. Why run at the brick wall when you can go through a gap?
Yeah. Good analogy.
It is. But you don't see it now. It's just badge, couple of kicks. You know, I've always said for years, if you could get a team with the fitness they've got now, they eat all the right stuff, they've got all the medicals and the gymnastics.
They're athletes. Not that you weren't athletes then, you were sportsmen then. I'd say they're athletes now. I would say that was probably a difference.
They can't play the game. There is some... St Helens are the nearest team that play the game as it should be played.
Yeah.
I watched 3 games the other weekend. There was 2 World Cup games, I think, and West Hull played Hunsford Parkside at Featherstone, and it was on the RL thing, you know.
Yeah, the Rugby League app.
Rugby League app. Yeah. And it was on there, and that was the best game of the 3. Just was playing rugby as it should be played.
Yeah. Dave calls it the pure breed of the sport, don't you, Dave?
It's you know, it's not knocking the game. It's just to me it could be better because they're all. I mean, you see them. I mean, the second rows and that. These kids, the Bachelor and blokes like that, they run for gaps. Yeah,
Batch is a good old school style second rower. He'll come from deep.
One of the best I've ever seen as an older player was a kid who used to play for Wigan. He was a bit of a rat bag, but he was, and you know, it rather of a fight than a feed. And I can't think of his name offhand, but he was a real old style type player. You know what I mean?
What position did he play, Keith?
He was a second rower. Played for Wigan. He played for a few teams.
How recent?
But he was always a bit of a rebel, but by hell, he was a good player. I can't think of his name.
Well, anyone watching, if they drop it in the YouTube feed in the comments, the names, and then we'll come back to Keith in a few weeks and see if we remember who that player is.
You know, you go back, not that far back. Kids like, I'll tell you something now. Jim Drake once said to me when we was kids, he said, listen, you have 3 types of forward. You're a runner, you're a ball player, or you're a cruncher, like me, he said. You know, head down, arse up, do all the tackling. Your great players can do all 3. And you don't talk about forwards now. Your 3 players can do, your great players can do all 3. Your good players can do 2 out of the 3. And your average player can maybe only do 1 of the 3. And if you look at that, and just look at loose forwards, going back in years, your great loose forwards, your Derek Turner, your Vince Corellius, your Johnny Whiteley. Now, Johnny Whiteley, to me, is God in all, but to me, he wasn't a great player because he didn't like he'd rather smack his lips and punch somebody. To me, but Corellius and Derek Turner, they'd do anything. They'd eat you if the money was right.
Yeah.
I mean, So that's why they was great players. And then you prop forwards like Jack Wilkinson, Brian McTeague. I learnt more off Brian McTeague in an hour and a half when I played against him when he was at Wigan than any coach ever taught me. He was Great Britain number 10, and I was 18. And I'm packing against him. Frank Foster said to me before the game, "You know who you're packing against, don't you?" I said, "I'm McTeague. Leave him alone and he'll leave you alone." He said, "Cracking, he'll kill you." And I thought, coming from Foster, that was like, like the Pope saying that they're into God. You know what I mean? And so I played this game, and I remember going through. My job then was like I was pretty quick. I was running off Foster and Harry Poole, and I went for this gap, and I just saw this cherry and white shirt coming towards me. And as I went in, I went like that. Foster, he told me to use the elbows because he was a past master, right? Him and Harry Poole. And I got McTeague right on the button. So the next scrum, he put me in where he wanted me, right? And I could see it. It was there in front of my eyes, and it was like a piston. It went boom, like that. And I had this lump of pain between my eyes. And he said, "Keep your elbows to yourself, young'un." I said, "Right, O'Brien." And coming off after the game, we beat them 16-6. We beat Wigan. Never scored a try. And as we're coming off, he came up to me, put his arm around me, and he said, "Good game, Keith. Good game, young'un. You'll do all right, son." Right? And that was one of the biggest compliments I've ever had in my life. Really was. I was 8 foot tall. And when I got home, the old man never went to watch me play. My mother went, but my old man never went.
Right.
And the game had been on the radio, and he'd listened to the commentary, and he said, "You must have had a good game today." I said, "Why's that?" He said, "Well, the commentator said the best 3 forwards on the pitch was Bill Holiday, Frank Foster, and a young lad called Pollard." And he said, "So you must have done all right." Never said well done. That
was his
compliment.
Of well done.
His version.
White,
Yeah. I mean, I love all these stories, Keith. It's bringing it, to life. We've seen some of the old footage, and we've been watching rugby league since as long as we can remember, and we know a lot of those names from programs from our parents talking about the match, and it's lovely to listen to them. You moved on to another career after pipe fitting and rugby playing, and you became an author. Do you want to talk us through how that happened, or where those ideas came from?
Yeah, what it was. 11 years ago, we lost our son, Jason, to a rare disease called antitrypsin deficiency. He was 41, and he was living in Singapore, and he rang us up. I've got a problem, and I've got to talk to you. Got this antitrypsin. Well, we didn't know what he had. He had cancer of the liver, or he got a liver disease. So he came home, and my head was in shreds for me. And he died 12 weeks from being diagnosed.
I'm sorry to hear that.
With this disease. I'd read somewhere. He'd sent all this stuff home from Singapore. He was working in Singapore, and he sent all this stuff home from the doctors there for me to take him to his doctors here. And me being nosy, I'm reading through this stuff. And there was a thing called the Childs, as in Charles the referee, Charles Pugh. There was 2 doctors or 2 specialists that had done this thing on liver disease. And there was A, B, or C, right? A was not too bad. B was, you haven't got long. C, 12 weeks. From being diagnosed, mortality rate, that's what it was. And I read this, and then I read this other report where they put it down as a C. So I knew, or thought, that he only had 12 weeks to live. But I never told him, and I never told all that. But that's all he lasted, 12 weeks.
Wow.
So during this period of him dying and what have you, my head was in shreds, So somebody says to me, why don't you write a book about him? Because he'd done all right for himself. So I started writing this book, and it finished up more about me than him. So I wrote an autobiography about myself, which is that one.
The Red and White Phoenix, The Adventures of a Ezel Road Lad. That's the one.
So I wrote that one, right? And what I did, it cost me $2,000 to get published or something like that. So me and our last paid that, and then we sold 1,000 copies. and I gave a charity Alpha One Antitrypsin Deficiency Support Group. I gave them £5,000, and I give 500 quid to Rob Burrow, and I give 500 quid to Moss Massoy's charity.
Right.
So I got the book then. So and I was doing a creative writing course at Rovers. The Rovers Trust was running this creative writing course. So I went and did that under a bloke called Brian Lavery. Dr. Brian Lavery is a well-known author. Does on shipping. He wrote a couple of books on the old fishing industry. So Headscarf Warriors, or some of them called them, and another one. Anyway, we was doing this course, and I started writing this other book, right? So I'd done 360,000 words, and I went to we had to write a synergy about a book. So I wrote it about man, and he used to read it out and then write it, or rectify it, or mark it like.
Correct. Yeah.
So reading it out, he said, Glaswegian with it. It looked like Captain Birdseye. He said, "Hey Keith," he said, "see what your thing is, son?" He said, 360,000 words. So I said, "Yeah, it's Glaswegian. I can't do a Glasgow accent." So 360,000 words. He said, "Yeah." He said, "That can't be right, son." He said, "There weren't that many words in fucking War and Peace." Right? I said, "Well, it's right." He said, "Nah, you'll never sell it. You'll never sell it, laddie." So he said, "Change it." So, all right. "Can you change it?" So I said, "Yeah." So I changed it into 3 books. So a book's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. So each book had a bit.
Is it like the Sidfield 3-act structure?
Yeah, the trilogy thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first one was called "Save the Last Dance for Me," which was the old Drifters song. Mm-hmm. It's about a lass who runs away from home in Hull, and she runs away from home. Finds she's pregnant. She has twins. Right. The twins. The woman who gives birth to her she runs away to Blackpool. The woman who was the local midwife and abortionist, if you like, she sold one of the babies to somebody and told her that it had died. So this is just imagination. So she meets this kid. She comes back to Hull, and it's the story of the 2 twins. Then, right? One's brought up in Australia, which I knew about. Mm-hmm. The other one's brought up in Hull, and it's their lives going through the book. Right. And so I got told that if an unknown author will be lucky if he sells 250 books. So I had 250 books printed, and I sold 250 books. And all the money's always gone to charity. I take what it cost me out of it, in printing, and then the rest has always gone to charity. Well, the first one, Save the Last Dance for Me, went to Moss Massoy, because that's when he broke his neck, and he got 1,200 quid out of it. The next one was The Most Beautiful Girl in the World. That went to that went to Hull for Heroes, a charity in Hull that helped ex-servicemen.
Yeah,
they're building a village in just outside of Hull somewhere, and the ex-servicemen will get all these houses. People that are struggling,
mm-hmm.
see them begging for money on the streets and stuff like that. Fantastic charity. They got 1,100 quid when that one, and the latest one was There Won't Be Any More, which is that one.
Right.
That one's still for sale, and at the minute it's not going well because everybody's skint. But up to now, I've got my money back, cost for printing and the editing and all like that.
Yeah.
And I've still got a few quid left in the charity fund. I've had actually 300 quid given extra, but people have bought books and said, "Oh, I had 20 quid, what have you?"
Yeah.
So I've got, but they'll get, that's going to Rugby League Cares, and a group in Hull called it the Hull Bullnose Heritage Group. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
They'll get 500 quid a piece out of it, hopefully.
Right. So that's good. So everything that you do, then, anything that you from your book, so anybody who's watching this and anybody who wants to buy a book, the profits from that will be spread out to various charities then?
Yeah, to them 2 charities, yeah. Hull Bullnose, it's a charity that they have a museum in West Hull, and it's done everything related to the whole fishing industry. Hull Bullnose is, when you go through the docks into St Andrew's dock, it was like a bull's nose, right, mm-hmm. where the block gates were. So they call it the Bullnose. It was just its nickname. And this charity took on the name the Hull Bullnose Heritage Group. And it's keeping the history alive of the fishing industry, which is gone now, where we was all brought up. And there's 6,000 men lost at sea fishing over the years, right? And it's just, they've got all the records of nearly everybody that's ever been to sea. Anybody that's had people that live, worked in the fishing industry can get names of the ships that they sailed on and all that. It costs them about 600 quid a month just to keep it going.
Right.
So I'm donating half of it to them and the other half to Rugby League Cares, because they do well. We know what they do. They do
a lot of great work, Keith. Yeah. So
and up to now, I've raised 10 grand.
Well done.
Well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Brilliant work. So where can people buy these books now, Keith? Because you're still raising money for charity. Very good charity.
Want to email me, Keith Pollard 4 at AOL.com.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll put it in the description in the show as well, so they can email you personally, Keith.
Yeah.
And
order Amazon, but I'll get more money out of it than they will if buying it. The charity will get more money buying these off me. They're what they're called authors' books, right?
Yeah.
And I bought 250. I've sold about 190, I think, at the minute. I've got about 60 left, I think. Right. But I've got my money back. But as I say, and that one, they can get that one.
Yeah.
So how much are those, Keith?
Well, they both sell on the internet on Amazon. I think they're 11 quid or 12 quid. But if they want to contact me, and I'll sign them and dedicate them to anybody, whoever they want, and the postage will be about 3 quid, I think, anywhere outside of Hull. If they're in Hull, I'll deliver them myself, which I did do. Cost me a fortune in petrol, but
we'll do nowadays.
But outside of Hull, it's about 3 quid for postage.
Right.
Well, if you're in Hull, you can get both of those books for around £22. They'll be signed, dedicated, and delivered personally by Keith Pollard. Yeah. I think that is I'll
do 2 for 20 quid, right?
2 for £20 is a bargain. Outside. 2 very good books, and you're also giving that money to charity. So please do try and stretch to those 2 great books. It's coming up to Christmas, not too far away.
Yeah.
So you can donate them.
I'm writing another one at the minute for next year, and it's a follow-on from these. I won't go too far into it, but one of the brothers, they both become well, but they both do well in life, right? And one of the brothers worked in the North Sea like I did, worked in Africa like I did, worked in South Africa like I did, worked on oil plants and chemical plants like I did. So I knew what I was talking about when I was writing it. And the other kid, the one who was brought up in Australia, he's brought up in a lot of the situations that I. But the one I'm doing now is like pure fiction, based on what they're part of it, but it's all fiction. One of them meets a bloke who comes from America in the oil game, and it follows on from him. I'm going to call it "You're My Best Friend." If you'll notice, they're all songs, title songs. There Won't Be Any More was sung by the Silver Fox.
When you originally said there is this one book here and there won't be any more, I actually thought you was like giving it up. I was like, no, don't. You're doing so well.
There Won't Be Any More was a song. Charlie Rich, he used to sing that, right? And the last one, Save the Last Dance for Me was the Drifters.
Mm-hmm.
That one was Charlie Rich. The most beautiful girl in the world was Charlie Rich.
Right.
Remember that? Did you happen to see the most beautiful girl in the world?
Did you happen to see the most beautiful girl?
And the last one is You're My Best Friend, which was another
Queen
singer.
Was it?
Don Williams.
Oh, Don Williams. Yeah. No, you're my best friend.
So, and all the words of you can't actually print the words of a song because there's a copyright to it, but you can use the title of a song. So, does that be? So it's going to call it You're My Best Friend is the next one.
Right.
I've been doing that. I find I write easier on a night. I mean, I'll come to bed at 11 o'clock and I'll look at the clock. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll last goes by me. But it just
you get lost in it, don't you?
And edit it and then think of something else. Situations that I've been in or something I've heard about or just But on the back of it, I've got to admit, on the back of it, contains strong language and adult themes on all of them. Because when you've worked in the North Sea, you've watched every film that's ever been made. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So if someone pays the £20 direct to yourself, Keith, money will go to charity. If you live in Hull, you sign it, dedicate it, you'll drop it off yourself.
Well,
you won't stick the head on them, though, will you, when you drop it off?
From me. But you can buy them on Amazon. So the earlier ones, I think they're out of print now. There might be some left. Yeah. I haven't got any. In fact, the Red White Phoenix might be out of print now, but I've got a few left here. So.
If you don't buy one, I'm sending Keith Pollard round to your house. Yeah. He's going to get you.
Give him a whole
come in with that, and then he's going to stick that on.
He's going to nut you. It's been good, and I've enjoyed doing it. You know, it's therapeutic. It's and just thinking of chapters and you know.
Well, you create worlds and characters and give that character a backstory and a character arc throughout their journey, and the fact that you create that. I mean, I'm at university and I'm doing a filmmaking degree, so I do a lot of screenwriting and for TV. And
but one of the things Brian Lavery used to say, we do this course thing on a Saturday morning, and he said, I want you to write a radio play. Right? So I give us the basic what you've got to do. Right? So I wrote a play on one of the characters in one of my books. Right? And we had to do it, right? And you've got to put in all the behind the scenes, the door closes, a bell rang, and you've got to. I've got it somewhere. Anyway, I wrote this. So when he read it out, he said to me, "You've done this before." I said, "No, I am." I said, He said, "Well, how did you know to do all this? How did you know to lay it out?" I said, "I found it on the internet. BBC have a standard of how you lay out a radio play." Mm-hmm. So it was pretty easy after that.
Yeah.
And his favourite saying is, "Show me, don't tell me."
Show, don't tell.
When you write the book, you've got to show it. Yeah. You've got to, I remember in one of my books, it was about a bloke I used to work with. And it's in this one, Big Mac. He's a character, but it's not him, but it's based on him. And he taught Glaswegian, but he was born in Hull. His mother and father was Glaswegian, right? But he taught like they come from Glasgow.
There's been a murder. Yeah. That's nothing to do with me, pal.
and he was a welder. So in the part of the book, and there's a pub in Hull called Rayners, which was where all the fishermen used to go. It was a big fishing, well, they say it was a fishing area, but that was the main pub on the corner of Westdock Avenue. You went down Westdock Avenue to go onto the fish dock. That was where all the fishermen hung out. And some of the characters that used to get in there, it was possibly one of the longest public bars in Northern England. It was there was 4 pump stations on it, right? Yeah. And we're like 4 barmaids on every pub. It was a massive pub. But some of the characters used to go in there. Mm-hmm. One of my uncles was called Scrap Roberg, and this comes into it a bit. He was Norwegian. His family was Norwegian, right? So, and some of the stories he used to tell. So, the characters in here at the beginning, her father was from Norway. They emigrated, and when the famine was on in Ireland, the famine was on in England, in Norway, Scandinavia at the time. Right. Finland, Sweden, and Norway, Denmark, and Sweden.
Yeah.
And they emigrated to America, and they used to come through Hull. They used to come into Hull's port, get on the train to Liverpool, right? Now they built a platform. The platform's still there, and the immigration station, the immigration building that they built, is still there. It's a club now. It's Tiger's Lair, they call it. It's for Hull City support. And so I've used the characters that came from Norway. A lot of them stopped in Hull, never went any further, like the Brobergs, the Nielsen's. I knew Dave Nielsen. His father's ancestors came from Norway.
Right.
So I looked up all the history of that and built that into the book.
Wow.
So their ancestors, actually, that's why they call them the Askanis. It's a name I found. It's a name I found on the internet. The Askanis trilogy, they call it. They call them Leif and Jans Askanis. and the father, he was the one who came over. No, my cousins, my cousin's son, he said to me one day, didn't Scrap ever tell you about his family when they come over? So I said, no. So we started talking about it. So it was that as the beginning of the book.
Yeah. Everything's material. Everything is material.
Yeah. And it's and then you just got to look it up on the internet and just
research it.
Just build it from there.
Brilliant. Sounds like you've drawn on a lot of experiences, Keith, to develop the book, and just very well done for completing it. Do you think you would have done it without your experience with your son?
No. I don't think I would.
That was a driver for it?
Yeah. It was just, my head was in shreds. I was really struggling. The wife was struggling. May is a terrible month because he died in the May. And May, you're better off not being here with our lass.
It's tough.
And it's never out your mind. You never forget him.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, that's him there with my nieces.
Right.
Wow, lovely.
That was the last holiday we went on. We went to Disneyland.
What was his name?
Jason. Yeah, Jason Wilson Pollard.
Wilson Pollard.
His middle name was.
Well, we'll dedicate this show to his memory.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was his middle name. He was in a pub when he was born in Keighley, and I took him in the pub. I used to work in this pub because I was after a pub at the time, and I worked in the Royal in Keighley. The bloke I had a bloke called Jack Holmes. He used to play for Keighley, and our local MP was in. A bloke called Johnny Binns, and Labour MP. I was in there. It was a dinner time. We walked in, and Jason's in my arms, like. And Mary, Jack, just said his name, man. Johnny Binns, his wife Mary, said to me, "What are you going to call him?" So, I said Jason. So she said, "Oh, that's a nice name." What about his middle name? Well, we hadn't thought of it, So I said, "Oh, I don't know." So Mary said, "What's your maiden name?" So she said, "Wilson." Jason Wilson Pollard. So that'd look good as a member of Parliament. You know what I mean? We've got
it's a nice name, yeah. There's a nice ring to it, and it's it's a privilege of ours to be able to dedicate the show to him. So thank you for that, Keith, and very well done on your rugby career, and certainly on the books as well. And it's been an absolute pleasure listening to you, Keith. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Loved it. I hope I haven't bored you, by the way.
No, absolutely not. No, not at all.
I mean, look at the time; it's just flown by. Absolutely flown by. Not at all. No, it's lovely chatting to you, Keith. It really is, and we hope you have a lot of success with the books. And and once again, thank you very much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, fellas. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and big love to your missus as well, Keith.
Yeah,
send her our love. Thanks for listening to the Dockhouse Rugby Pod, or thanks for watching to the Dockhouse Rugby Show, whichever option you've chosen. Hopefully you've done both, but you never know. Whichever one you've chose, we hope you've enjoyed the show. We hope you've enjoyed listening to today's guest, Keith Pollard. A vast amount of stories there. We didn't even touch, he slipped him in, about his time in Africa and all this lot. Amazing. We'll have to come back and we'll have to do that again sometime, Keith. So thank you very much. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, please, we'd love to hear from you. Leave your comments in the comments section, and I'm sure myself, Dave, or even Keith will pass them over to Keith. And like you say, please get on and support the books. You're giving something to charity, but you're getting something back. You're getting a good read from a great author. So from me, Dave, and Keith Pollard, thank you very much. Don't forget, after tonight's show, leave your views in our comments section. We'd love to hear from you.